rises to a serious level. Also, there is an issue around Chicago O'Hare Airport and contract workers. Two unarmed security guards at O'Hare were fired under the pretense that they leaked sensitive security information to the press. Prior to that firing, they made statements to the press complaining about their pay, poor working conditions, and retaliation of union organizing activity. They also said that they had no training to deal with emergencies other than to radio supervisors in case of an event. What do you have in place to make sure contractors are giving the type of training that they need in these airports?
Mr. Payne, when it comes to the contractors that you're referring to, Chicago is a federalized airport, so the transportation security officers there are federal employees. So I imagine and I am not familiar with the report that you cited, but if I had to take a stab at it, I would say that the contractors you're probably referring to are the ones that work for the airport in other duties. We certainly have an insider threat program at TSA where we work with our airport and airline partners to make it so that we are putting into effect as many of the ASAC recommendations as possible, reducing the number of access points to the sterile area, and increasing the expectation for every airport worker that they will be screened or they will be questioned if they came through a gate that required a badge screening. We are beginning to see some significant improvement in the insider threat piece, and we are improving our insider threat training across the system. But if I may, Mr. Payne, may I just address something you mentioned earlier in your statement? I would like to go on record as saying that 99.7% of TSA officers have passed integrity tests. So I would say 99.7% of our tests have seen positive results. Over 5,000 tests at over 200 airports since 2012. And to have that rate speaks to the integrity and the values-driven workforce that I am very proud to be a part of.
Okay. Well, my time is up, and so I'll yield back. But just before I say that, I do reach out to TSOs when I see them. As a matter of fact, on my way back to Washington, picking up my clothes at the cleaners, there was a TSO that came in, and I definitely thank them for their service.
Thank you so much for doing that.
And I'll yield back.
Chair thanks the gentleman from New Jersey, and would like to state for the record that all parties on the committee and as well, you folks received the report at the same time, which is yesterday. So nobody was given any deference. We all got it at the same time, and we're all going through it, including you as well. So with that, the chair will now recognize the gentleman from Alabama, Mr. Rogers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank the witnesses for being here. Dr. Guadi, I want to follow up on Mr. Katko's question about the bonus compensation. You mentioned these were all senior executive service officials who were receiving them, and it's now been capped at $10,000. Is there a total cap on annual compensation for SES officials?
So our program is in concert with the OPM standards. I do not have the exact number for you, though.
But is there a total cap?
I do believe
on top of their annual base compensation that they can possibly be paid?
A performance bonus? Yes, they will be paid a performance. They are paid a performance bonus commensurate with their performance in that year. But I do not know the exact cap, sir. I can get back.
My question really goes to this: if somebody's being paid $175,000. Is there a cap on how much over and above that they could possibly be given, or is there an unlimited amount?
We have controls in the department, so at a certain level you have to pay an SES 5% of as a bonus level. If you decide it's 0 or 5, that's the starting level. Beyond a certain dollar value, and I can't remember that dollar value, we have to go through the department. The deputy secretary has to approve it. We have a performance review board that reviews everything across the department. But as to the exact value, or do we have an absolute cap, I would have to get back to you on that.
Please do. Please check and see if there is any cap or not.
I'll take that as a get back, sir.
But anyway, I wanted to ask you, 5 entities within the TSA have responsibility for some part of the process to address misconduct, but no one senior official has been clearly designated to oversee it. Despite this, though, TSA has 20 direct reports to the administrator. I find that just phenomenal that Neffinger has 20 direct reports and nearly 3,000 headquarter employees. That's an awfully big bureaucratic hierarchy. Do you think that's the best structure to be used to deal with some of these problems that have been outlined in this report?
So as I mentioned before, when it comes to misconduct allegations, there are different functions that have to work through the system. You need somebody to investigate, you need somebody to adjudicate the findings of the investigation, and you certainly need leadership that can implement the disciplinary process. But all of them do come through for their policies, the Office of Human Capital, and then of course ultimately they're responsible to the administrator and myself. So we do have a structure that is actually rather in keeping with the rest of government when it comes to the assignment of functions. The centralization of the workforce management is underway, as I mentioned. We are in fairly short order here. We will begin to use Assistant Administrator for Human Capital as the central body that will oversee the policies and the implementation of the policies across the enterprise.
So I guess I'm hearing you say that you don't see a problem with the administrator having 20 direct reports. So
we have, when the administrator came in, he did look at his structure, and he has already consolidated many of those direct reports under a chief operations officer.
Good.
And so as we look to the future of TSA, we will certainly absorb the findings of your report, any best practices available as we keep evolving TSA to be an effective and efficient organization in the days ahead.
Well, I would urge you to look into the private sector for some of these organizational charts as opposed to the government. The government's not been the best role model for that. According to Administrator Neffinger, TSA vets employees on a recurrent basis. You made reference to that earlier today, which includes conducting criminal history checks to identify activity that might not be self-reported or disclosed as required. However, our investigation found that other agencies identified criminal activity that TSA missed, which were referred to the OIG for investigation. Please reconcile these two facts. How effective can the current vetting process be if other agencies are identifying information that TSA is not uncovering?
So I do believe it depends on what it is that was uncovered. So if it is recreational drug use, that would probably not show up in a criminal history check, for example. So in those instances, the annual criminal history check would not catch it, but if you were polygraphed at a different agency, you might self-report on it.
Great. Thank you. I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Chair thanks the gentleman from Alabama. The chair now recognizes the gentleman from Georgia, Mr. Loudermill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you both for being here today. This is extremely important. In my view, since I've been here and looking at TSA is definitely an important aspect of our national security. But I also believe that it is viewed by the American people as potentially one of the most mismanaged and ineffective from the perspective of, as we hear about now, long wait lines, but also the interaction between TSA employees and the general public, and some other issues which I'll get into. And I understand you haven't been on the job very long, so this isn't geared toward you. You have a lot of work ahead of you if we can turn things around. My first question, Mr. Osterbond, is, and I'll pose this to both of you, of the numerous allegations of misconduct that are made, generally who makes those allegations? Co-workers, supervisors, the public? Who is it that makes most of the allegations?
I don't have specific information to provide to you, an exact number. It is certainly all of the above in terms of the allegations we get, and it of course depends on the nature of the allegation. The narcotics through an airport came through a confidential informant, so someone that was not part of TSA at the time. So it really depends.
Okay. Would you like to address that?
I would concur with everything the judge just said.
One of the things I've known from working in the military and as well as in private business, one indication of poor morale is exactly what we're seeing here. A lot of allegations, which many may end up being false. I think there is a morale problem. We have another question I have is regarding the number of employees. I think 781 have been placed on administrative leave between 2013 and 2015. Are generally those employees paid while they're in administrative leave?
I do believe they are, sir, but I can get back to you on the specifics.
Okay, I would appreciate that because a previous investigation we did through this committee showed that during that similar time frame, the Department of Homeland Security spent over $30 million paying employees to stay at home and not at work because they were on administrative leave, and some of those for as much as 2 years. And quite often our friends on the other side of the aisle say that our biggest problem in TSA is a lack of funding, and I think there's at least $30 million that we can use there if we can adjudicate these on a much quicker basis. Let me address one other thing that's very important. I'm actually going to be meeting with an ambassador for a foreign country over some issues that we've been having. Last year, a constituent of ours was put in prison in India, because when they arrived in India to work for Habitat for Humanity, it was found that he had 4 live bullets in a backpack that he carried on to the aircraft. He didn't know they were in there. He borrowed the backpack from his son, went through 2 TSA checkpoints in the United States, and was not found. When he arrived in India, they were found. Right now, I have a constituent in Mexico who is arrested. He made it through TSA check